Yo come tu corazón. Mi español es mierda. Spain!
¡Que no nos engañen! ¡Ahora más que nunca! ¡Hay que ser español y sacar banderas a la calle!
Impresionante verlo bajar, impresionante. Al lado. Uy, qué pena. Se ha echado una farola.
¡Viva España! ¡Me cago en la leche de todo! ¡Carajo! ¡Viva España!
History baffles me sometimes. See, I'm going on a trip to South America in a few months, and being that South America is predominantly Spanish-speaking, as I do not intend to go to Brazil,
Mario, you are going to Brazil.
I thought it would be a good idea to learn the language, right? And in my experience, the best way that I learn languages is by getting really obsessed with the history of a place, then learning the geography of a place, and then learning the language based on what all those geographical names mean. That's how I learned German. Obviously, this led me down a rabbit hole into Spanish history, and it left me with more questions than I'm used to having after doing a historical deep dive. The main question is, how the fuck did the Spanish go from one of the biggest empires in all of history to then fumbling that overnight? And given the fact that, a cursory glance at Wikipedia was not answering this question for me, I decided to go look into it a bit deeper, went down another rabbit hole, that led into another rabbit hole, and now I have the answer to this question, and I'm going to turn it into content, so that way, A, I have something to post, and B, I can go about my time in South America with some peace of mind. I can enjoy myself. Have fun. Oh, and whoever manages to find me gets a prize. My name is Alexander Hill. I'm a historical fantasy author who's only ever been to Barcelona for like 3-ish days, and that's pretty much all the experience I have with Spanish-speaking countries. And I'm going to tell you why the Spanish Empire fell. You should subscribe maybe if you think my half-witted attempt to put together all this clusterfuck of a time period into one video was successful. Or if you just like history in general, and if you like that, you should go maybe buy my novel. It's designed specifically for history autists like you, where a bunch of humanities nerds goes and uncovers the lost tomb of Alexander the Great. There's also magic based on literally every piece of folklore I could find that could be successfully converted into a working power system. So, there's that, because it's cool. Links in the description to go itch that hyperfixation of yours. I also want to thank everyone who's already bought the book as my, well, I guess you might call it a marketing campaign. I don't know if I would use those words. Has been pretty much nothing, but I'm still getting decent sales, especially for a debut novel, so you guys are awesome. If you could leave a review, you'd be even cooler, because right now my Amazon page is ass naked, and I would have all the reviews I need if my fucking ARC readers would have read the book in the 2 months I gave them to read the book instead. And yeah, I'm a little salty about that, not gonna lie. I know some of you are watching this. Go post that review. Now, when people talk about the fall of the Spanish Empire, this is a scenario where a lot of historians say the empire got one-guyed by Ferdinand VII, and fair enough. On this guy's watch, Spain got conquered by Napoleon, they lost all their American possessions, and then they went into a civil war and succession crisis upon his death. So that could be it, that could be the video. Except, aren't you giving the guy a little too much credit, right? Don't get me wrong, Ferdinand VII seems like a dog shit monarch, but I don't really subscribe to the whole like great man theory of history. Anything that is chalked up to one person in history usually is a societal trend that was already heading in that direction anyway, and at this point, it's just a matter of who's filling the shoes of the guy that pushes the first domino over, you know? What the fuck? So I just learned my sister's dog is not a puppy anymore and can jump out of its little fence thing, so yeah, that's fun. So let's go back in time a bit. Spain is a relatively new invention compared to something like France or England, but is still fairly old, especially compared to something like Germany or Italy. By the time Spain becomes a thing, the Christians had just spent around 700-ish years trying to kick the Muslims out of the Iberian Peninsula. Spain's formation comes about around the end of the 15th century, coinciding with Columbus miscalculating the circumference of the globe and doing all the war crimes. And the Spanish Inquisition.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
So all at the same time, you have Castile and Aragon uniting in marriage, with Portugal as the third wheel, while the power couple that is Ferdinand and Isabella rocks Granada's shit. You also have Columbus pop into what he believed to be, and what he will continue to believe until his death, is somewhere in the Philippines.
Number 3, where were you born in the Philippines? Manila.
And inadvertently caused like 90% of Amerindians to die of disease. Thanks, Africa, and the Spanish Inquisition. Okay, so normally when you do an Inquisition, like in Italy, you get people who might be spreading heresy and you bring them to court to have them debate their ideas with the church and theological experts. If it lines up with a valid interpretation of the Bible according to the church, we're chill. It's all chill. If it doesn't, you're told why it's wrong and that you have to do penance. And then if you refuse to repent, that's when you get barbecued. I'm simplifying, obviously. The Spanish Inquisition was more of a, are you Christian? No, you will be Christian. What if I don't? Then fuck off. What if I don't fuck off? The Inquisition also started to purity spiral, and that's just never really a good sign. Purity spiraling is when people in a society start trying to compete with one another to see who has more of X quality. Like with the Spanish, it was how Christian they were. In Imperial Japan, it was like how weird Japanese nationalist that's really virtue signaling you are. The Inquisition got bad enough for the Pope to intervene and tell them to calm down. Although, compared to something like communism, it's small potatoes. The death toll for the Spanish Inquisition is like, at its highest estimates, 5,000 people. The reason it gets so much bad press is because it was kind of a convenient scenario for the Protestants that arose a few decades later to point at and cry bloody murder. While yes, the Spanish were exceptionally brutal for their time, industrial warfare is orders of magnitude worse. But the Inquisition does successfully allow northern Spain to finish colonizing southern Spain and kicking the Muslims out. But the thing about being on a frontier, like the Spanish were, is that the frontier societies tend to start adopting the characteristics of the people they're fighting. The Spanish kind of adopted a similar structure in their government to an Islamic empire, in the process of destroying said Islamic states.
You were the chosen one! It was said that you would destroy this and not join them!
Carol Quigley points to characteristics shared between Latin America and the Middle East as evidence for this, such as big governments, moral crusades, banning the printing press, Rip Gutenberg, large class structures without much social mobility, a lack of property rights, immense regional separatism only kept in check by a massive imperial apparatus motivated by divine right because said regional elite is unable to actually self-govern, etc., etc. This, combined with the Inquisition's purity spiraling and supremely bad timing, led to Spain right from the outset missing out on shit like the Renaissance, the Reformation, the Scientific Revolution, and all the early modern period stuff that Darwined Europe into becoming the not even close apex of human civilization for like 300 years. I mean, hell, most of Spain was still stuck in the Middle Ages in the 20th century. So this is the system that Spain is operating on when it creates its empire. Latin America was conquered in a very different way compared to most empires we see throughout history. The Conquistadors were basically the bloodier equivalent of a tech startup without the capitalism.
To worry, I have a permit. This just says I can do what I want.
Basically, 50 guys would get together and, under the sponsorship of a patron, go out and pillage a huge swath of the Americas.
Vaya con Dios.
And here you see the difference between the Iberian and the Anglo points of view when it comes to their colonies and how they were run. The English tried to get rich off creating value. The Spanish tried to get rich off of extracting or digging up value.
Gold zipper, gold belt, gold watch.
I, on a Nietzschean level, purely admire Cortez to a certain degree. But fuck Pizarro, that guy was a thug. I spit on you! Also, the Spanish conquest of the Inca Empire and its consequences were just... Ugh. I like the Inca a lot more than I like the Aztec, and I feel a little bit worse for them than I do the Aztecs because... Frankly, the Aztecs were hated by fucking everyone around them, and they had like mock battles where they would go and set up like a predetermined LARP battle between them and one of their subject kingdoms so they could steal captives to be sacrificed to their gods. So I don't have like a ton of sympathy for them. But the Inca were not only slightly less terrible, they still practiced like some weird version of communism, but they also actually got really close to beating the Spanish, and I love a good underdog story. Also, the silver mines that the Spanish took over in Potosi were used to fund several attempts at conquering Europe by the Spanish, specifically in the Low Countries, France, Germany, and the whole Spanish Armada thing.
God wants me to wage war. Yes, sir, Jesus! I will do it!
The gold and silver coming out of Bolivia flooded Europe so badly that it crashed the economy and hyperinflated the Spanish currency in 1527, because that was basically the pre-modern version of printing money. It also didn't help that Spain only allowed the colonies to trade with Spain and only allowed them to trade with the British colonies or literally anyone else like twice a year. Oh, and the fucking instant, the second you are born in the Americas, you get demoted to a second-class citizen. So everyone in charge of the American colonies was appointed from Spain, meaning none of the colonies had any like apparatus or class or anything that taught the people there, regardless of race, how to self-govern. Speaking of which, additionally, there's a racial caste system with like India levels of fuckery, except instead of there being 4 castes, there are like fucking 60 of them. And the point I'm getting to here is not that the Spanish even had to be like not racist. Let's be real here. They could have had a much better system with about just as much racism. There are plenty of other empires who did that successfully. But the fact that you were born in the colonies, even if you were white, you were disenfranchised from society immediately, meaning that the whole system is just not sustainable. I once heard someone talk about the Spanish Empire's colonies and how Spain treated them like other provinces or states back in its home country, and when it takes 6 months to get there and back, that just doesn't work logistically. Like, imagine having to wait a year for any word from the Spanish crown and not being able to do anything without Spain's permission because no self-governance. Miraculously, this frankly dog shit system lasted a few hundred years until 1800, when Napoleon walked up to it and, like he did with the Holy Roman Empire, tossed the Spanish Empire into a proverbial vat of acid. Well, kind of. See, Latin America does this weird thing where their politicians are constantly LARPing as whatever is the most popular political fad at the time. But in reality, it's the old Spanish system dressed in different colors. This is how you know that Milei and Bukele believe in what they say, since the most popular ideology among Western governments in recent years has been the weird, like, cultural, not socialism, socialism.
¡Zurdos, hijos de puta, tiemblen! ¡La libertad avanza! ¡Viva la libertad, carajo!
This also happened in the 1900s, where they LARPed as communists and fascists without really being communists and fascists, because if you looked inside, it was just the old Spanish system again. In the late 1800s, they had emperors and kings and LARPed as Britain, since they were totally reliant on Britain's trade, and also that was like their century. When they became independent, they LARPed as the American Revolution. And quite a bit of cool and crazy stuff happened, don't get me wrong, but it was really kind of an unwilling independence that I feel like a lot of Latin American countries were like, you know what, actually we did want this. The only people actually pushing independence were these disenfranchised whites who were born in the colonies, and frankly I think it would have happened sooner or later, with or without Napoleon. But Napoleon made it so Spain literally was incapable of holding anything besides Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines.
Yo, what you doing, man? What you doing, man?
But you know what? For as much shit as I've talked, it is just damn impressive how far they got. I mean, it took us in America, like, what, 50 plus years to finish Manifest Destiny? You know, just take a little walk from Mississippi to California to make sure the British didn't get anything. In that same period of time, Spanish conquered everything from New Mexico all the way down to Argentina. So I guess the lesson here is, no matter how much special sauce you think you got, don't blow your load too early. That is the worst possible way I could have phrased that. Anyway, that's a little... I have a feeling this video is going to be a little shorter than my usual videos are, but... that's fine. That was my analysis on why the Spanish fumbled the bag. And if you liked it, once again, you should subscribe. If you made it all the way to the end and you like what I do here and you like some of the other stuff that I do, I really recommend picking up a copy of my book. And even if you don't want to pick up a copy of my book, I get it, I'm a debut author. You can sign up to my emailing list for any books that might catch your fancy more in the future. Or you can read 2 chapters of the book for free on my website to see if you like it or not. Because the whole book thing is that's the point. That's the point of it. Look, have you seen the name of my channel? That's the point of this. I want you to buy my books. That's fine. Leave a comment. Tell me what you thought. Next week, I did promise Interregnum 2 this week. But that's gonna take a minute, because I actually have quite a few other ideas that I'm kind of into right now. But I'm gonna finish the interregnum, okay? I promise. Okay, bye.